just so empty without the S14 in here. So the S14 is going to be residing not in the garage, out and away for the time being until we get the whole motor situation all figured out with it. Until then, there's a lot of room on this side of the garage. As you guys can tell by the title of this video, we have a special box. We're gonna need to bring these parts along with the car over to the shop for installation. And obviously with that, you need to fit the parts in the car. You know what they say about good old R8 frunks. Really small for the mass size of this huge clamshell that you have. So I think we're gonna have to resort to the main cabin. Unless you count our little doodles that we did on the outside of the R8 a mod, today is a very special day because today is the first official modification that we're adding onto this car. As always, please like this video for the YouTube algorithm. It really helps me out and it helps me motivated to keep making more YouTube videos when I see them do well. So please smash that button, as they all say. Currently raining really rough outside right now. This is the first time I've taken the R8 out in the rain with the doodles on the outside of it, and I wasn't ever sure how they were gonna held up in water because I wasn't exactly sure how waterproof the paint markers were. So today we're really gonna find out, I guess. Today's installation leads us to German Autohaus up here in Woodinville, Washington. There's only so many shops and people that I trust working on my R8, especially because this is a brand new second gen one, and German Autohaus happens to be the people that are gonna get today's job done. Doodle's still holding up in the wet. Bringing her in. The goodies. So I didn't know these guys are just based up north in Bellingham, Washington. So.
I found that out too. I was like, oh man, you guys can make kits for anything. I was like, yep.
Yeah, so we are going with the H&R adjustable lowering springs on the R8. I'm sure the big question was, a lot of you guys were wondering, are we doing air ride again on this machine over here? And just coming from the last car, I think I enjoyed the air ride experience that I got to go through it, and it was always a bucket list for me to have a car on air ride, so I'm really glad I went through with that. But for the more exotics and for this car, I wanted to keep it a little more casual and leave it just on basically static lowering springs. Air suspension on exotics has a lot to live up to because these exotic cars already come with really good OEM suspension. So I would say airlift makes a lot more sense to do it on a older car or a car that has cheaper OEM suspension. But for a car like this, I mean, I want to try and preserve as much as I can of it. So that's why these lowering springs are just gonna go right on top, replace the springs that are on the car, but we're still gonna keep most of the MagneRide suspension on it. I also wanted to make it clear that air ride has a big purpose for show. And for my last R8, that made a lot of sense because I got allocated a spot for the SEMA show, and I really wanted to do something to make it really stand out and have a good show car effect, and that's where the air ride came in handy. But for this car, we're not exactly sure what our current SEMA plans are as of this year, and I'd rather keep it a lot more tame and just try something different and go to static route. And with that said, hopefully the car still is gonna be pretty low. Which Lamborghini is this from?
That is from a Gallardo.
Oh, okay.
Well, I think actually that's from an Audi. Yeah, that's from an R8.
Oh, wow.
Yep, same thing.
Yeah, I was gonna point it out.
This is for hybrid car. You know Audi R8 hybrid?
What do you mean? We found there's a speaker right in the wheel well. You guys are probably wondering why in the world they would put a speaker right on the exterior of the car, basically, but it's for road noise.
No, when you drive it, a lot of beautiful girls say, "Oh, I know you."
You blast out onto the streets on everyone outside. But yeah, it's to reduce the tire sounds that you get as you're driving along, which honestly makes sense because I always found that the sound deadening in this car is extremely quiet for what it is.
Here we go.
First,
Magna.
Oh yeah, you got the MagneRide, and we got the whole first piece out.
It's ready.
Yeah.
Okay, here is the strut, and this is what we need to do. The first connector, because we need to remove this head from shaft, and this is really small. Yeah. Okay.
Sweet.
And cut the wire from this connector. Keep this wire, keep this seal. Now we can start reassembling strut. Okay, here is the big guy. Always carry these tools.
So now we just compress the spring. Could you imagine the ride quality riding on that spring compression?
It's like on the hydraulic bouncy.
Yeah.
Okay, use special key for locking shaft. Then 3/8 extension. It's just simple because same diameter. And
Okay, break it loose.
There we go.
just gently because the wire here. Now
all that cutting
yeah,
off just so that could fit right there.
This is why we need the cut, because it's impossible to pull two wire
Yeah,
in one time.
with all that stuff on it.
And then afterward, we just solder it together and call it a
Okay,
day.
head. So we can remove it. We need to keep this one, except this bumper.
Would you say it's like this complicated on like all cars on taking apart suspension, or is it just like?
This is a little bit more because it's got the magnesium setup.
Oh right.
If you had the regular one, it'd be like that. It'd be
Gotcha.
quick. The only thing, because of the magnesium, it takes a little bit longer because you want to finesse it. You don't want to rip things apart, break things apart.
Gotcha.
But are there worse cars? Yeah.
What's like the worst of the worst?
It really depends on what you. I mean,
Would you say like more luxurious cars with more like
air suspension,
air suspension
hydraulic
integrated?
suspension.
Yeah.
Those are more difficult.
Yeah.
You gotta make sure you don't. If you're gonna bleed the system, not bleed the system. If you can avoid taking things apart. I forgot which car we did. Basically, we took the strut, and on the bottom there was a connection for the fluid, for the hydraulic fluid, and we took the spring out from the top and put a new spring on and put it together. It was great, because if you take the fluid out, you gotta bleed the system, and that's a pain.
Yeah.
So there are some cars that are just a big pain. Your car is pretty simple, just a little bit more difficult because of the magnesium.
Yeah. So on my model right here, Audis in their R8s, they have this thing called MagnaRide, which is basically adaptive suspension that allows me. I have different drive modes, so there's dynamic, comfort, individual, all of that, and I basically am able to have customizable suspension quality because of the MagnaRide system that they have on these. On the Plus models, those are more like race oriented, so they usually don't have MagnaRide on them. The MagnaRide is the one thing that makes it a tad bit more work to replace the spring.
Okay, just a two small cut each side.
Oh
Yeah, and we remove this cap and remove this support. Now strut is ready to install coilovers.
So that's the adjustable
Yeah.
threads.
And now is challenge to install the spring back.
Yeah. Thread that on there.
And slowly, not any crazy torque, just a hand torque. First we install this top bolt for holding strut.
Then we handle the bottom afterward. So we have a nice matching red spring to go along with the red calipers. It's not really going to matter because you're not really even going to be able to see those once the wheels are in. But
This is like a girl say, if they have a really good Victoria's Secret stuff, like nobody can see. They feel good because they have expensive.
he's speaking facts right here.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh my god.
that is a lot lower.
A little?
That's not even settled or anything. That's just.
I'll go lower.
It'll go lower than that. Oh my
Oh,
god.
yes. Tim showed up. This is actually like really hard to capture on camera because everything's so dark. The wheels are dark, the car is dark. This thing dropped significantly. I was not expecting this. They are lowering springs, and in my like previous usage of lowering springs, they've never gotten the car crazy on the ground and even tucking tire. But I mean, let's just get up close here. Now you can see with the exposure a little bit up, that is tucking a little bit of the tire. And the craziest thing is that it can go even lower and it could even settle a lot more. Then we got the rear back here. Obviously, there could be some spacing that could be worked up on, but we also may not be staying on these wheels for that much longer either. Let me just do some before and after right now.
Oh my god.
Dude, it's crazy.
That was insane.
Dude, it's so crazy. Back on the road, and I'm almost questioning, did they install the H&R lowering springs on this thing? Because this car rides exactly how it did before on the way to the shop, and that's incredible. I will say, the ride quality, it just doesn't even feel that much stiffer or crazy firm. Really good on H&R on the quality on that part. Now, it does rub, especially if I turn a lot, and if all of the weight of the car gets shifted onto one side when cornering, it is rubbing a little bit. So the car is also settling, and it's slowly getting lower over time as I'm driving it around. We will see. We may actually have to raise it even some more. The real question, can I make it into my driveway easily without scraping? I think we're good. I think we're chilling. I mean, it doesn't have an aero kit or anything underneath the car yet. Just yet. Good Lord Almighty. God, it's so hard to capture on camera because everything is so dark, but it literally looks like the car is bagged. That's how low it looks like we went on the lowering springs. I mean, just appreciate that tuck in the front. And then the rear is looking good as well. I think the rear is solid, and I don't think I've heard any rubbing from the rear. The front might need to be raised just a smidge. I never would have ever imagined that the H&R lowering springs would have dropped the car this much, let alone the fact that they can go even further down, but we're not gonna do that. We might have to go up. I'll tell you what, I'll make a bet with you guys. If this video gets 10,000 likes, I won't touch the lowering springs and I'll ride around this low in the R8. So you guys better like this video up and do your part. Now, I could be completely dumb. In my opinion, I just don't see the reasoning in buying coilovers for this car, at least the second gen R8, when you can buy these H&R lowering springs for just over, I think, $1,000, which is not a lot at all for an R8, considering that if you were to buy coilovers, those cost anywhere from $4,000 to $6,000. And these lowering springs drop the car more than enough, more than I could ever ask for, and then I still keep my OEM MagnaRide that is nice and have all the different drive selection choices. So yes, I want to thank H&R for supporting this build on the car, but I genuinely don't see the point in buying coilovers for this R8. I see the point in other cars because other cars may not have adjustable lowering springs as an option, but I mean this car does, and the fact that I can raise and lower the car with just swapping out springs, I mean, it really seems too good to be true. Now, if you guys would simply excuse me, I have some groceries to attend to. German Autohaus did an amazing job installing them on here. I'm probably going back to them to do the exhaust that's gonna come up on the car. Oh yeah, we're going louder. I mean, it's a stock boy right now, so we gotta beefing that up, open that up, and then maybe slap on a little tune there to unlock the rest of our horses. Horses are trapped, they need to be let out. I know this thing's capable of above 600.